Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Hey, welcome everyone. It's great to see you.
Hope you've all had a great week, and I know we have, and been busy. And weather's starting to turn nice a little bit for us, which is kind of unusual because usually we still have winter hanging on. But it's getting up in the 60s, and it's been lovely outside.
Yep, it's been great.
I see we got a few people in chat. Let's say hi to Mr. B and Lulu and Roger. Welcome in to Mothman, Moon at Noon, Henry Nelson, Jim's
Jim,
camera.
Jim's camera, Roger, Blair. I'm trying to scroll
I,
back here myself.
yeah, that's what I'm doing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, if we missed anybody, sorry. Well, there's Neil
Dra-
Castle Dude.
Dragonfly. Hey, Neil. Welcome in, Neil. Millie. All right. Seeing all kinds of our friends in here. It's great to see you guys.
So our guest tonight is Lynn Monet, which is an author and a spiritualist, and we've had her on our show before, and she was just fantastic and had awesome stories. And we talked about the afterlife last time, and how you see a person's soul when they pass over, and loved ones coming down to greet them and take them home. And Lynn can
Mm-hmm.
see spirits and do remote viewing, I guess, evidently. So we're going to bring her up and start talking. And I think we're going to concentrate on her book series, Omnipresent, which you'll be able to find on Amazon and everywhere you get books. But we'll have Lynn tell you all about that, and she can tell you where to go to get her stuff and where to find her at, other than being here with us tonight. So we'll bring Lynn up and say hi.
Yep.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So glad to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Thank
Yeah,
you
Oh
it's
so
yeah,
great
much
to
for
we're
have you
glad to
back.
have you back.
thank you for having me
Yeah.
back. Wow. Yeah, isn't this weather great?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just
I
I
hope it doesn't come in and like a lamb and roar like a lion at the end. I hate to have a
Yeah.
snowstorm here in a month.
yeah, especially when things have started to bloom and then it kills all the blooms off. So
Yep.
yeah,
Right.
that's kind of touch and go. But anyway, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to coming in and doing this. And yeah, I just when I was here last time, had I already been to Denver? Had I talked about? I was recently flown into Denver by George Norrie to do a segment on Beyond Belief for Gaia.
Mm.
No,
And I
we
did.
had talked about that personally, but you were at your sister's house when we had you on. Then after that is
Mhm.
when you got the invite from George.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
cool.
yeah. I went and I did that. That was he's an amazing man, and I had my moment. I have to brag a little bit because being a mom, a single mom with single mom or married mom for anybody, being a mom is, you're busy all the time. And of course they put me in this nice hotel, and I had this driver in a Lexus toting me all around everywhere. And it was just amazing. A hotel room with a big bathtub, like the kind with the water that comes up to your eyeballs. So I
Oh
definitely wore
wow.
that bathtub out. But I had my moment. I had my queen bee moment. And then, of course, I had to come home and hit the reality of driving around my Toyota Corolla. But that's okay. At least I can say that I had my moment. It was a wonderful experience, and they're all Gaia. They're wonderful people, the directors and everything. And George, of course, it's my second time meeting him in person, and he's just
Mm.
absolutely amazing. So I was
Well,
felt very
good.
grateful to be able to do that.
Wow,
Maybe
that's
it won't be your last.
awesome.
Maybe that'll be a start of something good for you.
I hope so. I hope so. They said that they plan on having me back, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But I'll definitely let everybody know when the program comes out on Gaia. I'll give you the link so that you don't have to pay for going in to see it if you're interested in having it. So
Yeah.
All right, that'd be
I'd love to
awesome.
see it. Cool.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your book series and what you got going on, and what you're all about first, and then we'll start diving into some of these experiences you've had.
okay, I have the 5-star rated Omnipresent series that's going to end up being a series of 5 books. The first one is Omnipresent, which is about a house that I purchased as a single mother that was so haunted that I was never able to move in. That cover is actually an event that occurred in the house while my son at age 7 was sitting on the toilet in the master bathroom, seeing those creepy hands coming through at him, and left him with such post-traumatic stress that even at 25, he still won't sleep without the light on. I mean, the light off. He sleeps with the lights on. So it affected him adversely. Then I have Omnipresent, What Happened Next, because everybody wanted to know what happened next. Talks about how I got in touch with the family that I bought the house from and got to learn of the events that was happening with them, as well as the events that were happening in the area of the neighborhood of the house with other people, and a rotation that I did through a class that I had to take later in life. I went back to further my nursing degree, and it talks about attachments on people with schizophrenia and addiction and that sort of thing. I then wrote a book called 111 Becadon Drive, which is in editing. It should be coming out hopefully here in a couple of months. It's a story about a townhouse of 10 units and a ghost that was a naked man ghost that was going from townhouse to townhouse, pulling down women's underwear in the middle of the night and crawling in bed with them. Also, I'm currently writing a book called Omnipresent Gnome, Place Like Home, which some of that we touched on the last time that I was on, about an issue with an elemental at a house that I just inherited that's been confirmed haunted, and also confirmed that the elemental's there by some paranormal teams. And I have Colors of Heaven, which we talked about last time, which is a book about death, dying, and afterlife. I'm a death doula. It's written in a very beautiful way to hopefully help take the stigma of death and dying away. And then a book called The Gap, What Else Your Adolescent and Teen Needs to Know, which has nothing to do with paranormal, but I wrote it because some counselors had come forward and asked me to write something when I was looking for a book for my own daughter and couldn't find something. Everything leaves off with the birds and the bees and picks up with human trafficking, but there's that stuff in between that you need too, and there aren't any books to cover it. So this one is out. It's not candy coated, people. You need to read it first before your kids do, because you need to make sure that it's appropriate for your child. And yeah, so all of that. And so I've been doing a lot of shows. I'm wanting to restart my podcast. I just haven't had time to do it, to get a set time frame. So I'm more of a guest on shows right now than to have my podcast, but I hope to have that up and going maybe within the next 6 months or so, depending on life and how life goes. And then of course the thing with George that I had just mentioned, I'm very proud of. And so that's what I've been doing. I've just been staying busy, but the Omnipresent series is an interesting story if you'd like me to go in on that.
Yeah, we can start off anywhere you want. That would be fine. I was going to say, when you're mentioning stuff, we catch you on Cisco's show all the time.
Yep.
Yes, every the last Sunday of every month, I co-host with Cisco. She's an amazing person. I just love her.
Yeah, great show.
Oh, she is. She's just my goal this year is to meet her in person somewhere, either the Gettysburg bash or whatever. My goal is to get to meet some of you in person this year. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm going to be traveling a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be I made mention to George Norrie hasn't got his touring thing all together yet, but I know they're going to Indianapolis, and I might get to come there as one of the speakers or guest speakers with George, not traveling with him, but meeting there to be one of the speakers, guest speakers. So I'm looking forward to that. So I will get to travel around a little bit as well.
Yeah, that'll be nice to actually get out and meet some people that, just like us, we don't really know very many people in person other than having them on our show or being in their chats and their shows. And it's nice when you actually get to meet somebody face to face.
Right.
It is. Now, what state are you guys in?
Illinois.
Illinois. Okay. Yes. Well, I may get to meet you too, because I might be up that way as well. So, I'll definitely be reaching out to people. It is, it's wonderful to connect with the energy, and we all are of like mind, so we can sit and talk about things, and it makes it so much easier, when you're communicating. Of course, everybody around us in a 10-mile radius, and restaurants and stuff like that are like, what?
Yeah.
They start looking like there's a stench in the room, and they start moving away a little bit, but that's okay. We don't care. We know what we're talking about. I like it too that your podcast is upper level. It's nice to come into a format where people are of like mind, and it's not like the 101 class where you're trying to teach people and convince them. These are all people coming together that already know that this stuff exists and is real. And so it's like the advanced class. Your podcast is like the advanced class where we can come in and congregate and feel free to talk about these things openly without anybody, questioning or doubting or whatever.
Right.
So, it makes it really, really nice to do that. So
Yeah,
that's
'cause
why I love coming on here.
we always talk about that, where we want to hear everybody's experiences and how they experienced it, so we can try to see, okay, does it make sense on how we see things, or we might grasp a little bit out of their story to fit the piece of the puzzle for us to see a bigger picture. And we just love people telling us their experiences, because not everybody's experiences are the same.
No, and you're so right. And the thing is too, is, anybody that ever comes up and says that they're an expert in this field is a liar, because there's no way. I mean, you think you've got it down pat, and then you get thrown a curveball. So we do, like you said, we connect with one another, and not everybody has to see it the same way. They see it in their own way. But like you said, sometimes it's that piece that clicks in that we need, and that light bulb. It's like, oh, well, now that makes sense. No wonder, I thought it was this, but that makes more sense, and it fits into place. So it's really, really nice to be able to have a community and friends that we can all bounce off each other and learn from. So and that's great.
Now, before we get started, and I don't know if this is relevant or not, but a friend of ours, Castle Dude Neil, asks, is the Grim Reaper the angel of death? Do you know anything about that, dealing with the afterlife?
The Grim Reaper and the Angel of Death is it's the same thing, but a different name, I guess you would. And everybody puts the Angel of Death as something so scary. I don't know why they've made it so scary, because really the Angel of Death is something very powerful that really seems to show up more prior to like a massive event type thing, like a massive event, like a plane crash. You'll hear more about them showing up even ahead of time. Like they're talking about the Angel of Death is on Earth right now with all of the stuff that we have coming up, and that the months of March, April, and May should be very interesting for, I've got to be careful what I say on Fluff Tube so we don't get kicked off, but there could be an event during this time frame that there could be massive issues where people leave the Earth. And, so we're, it is in position right now, but they make the Grim Reaper and the Angel of Death sound like the big boogeyman. And since people are kind of uncomfortable being around dead people to begin with, or spirits, even though they may be investigators, they still have that kind of moment when something does respond through the blinking lights or whatever. And it's different than that. So it's you can see it the way that you want to label it as a Grim Reaper, and it could be something very creepy in your mind, but usually it's not. It is a beautiful angel that is very, very big and actually muscular looking, and but it's not, because death is, because we don't die, number one. Death is not a bad thing. Our life really doesn't start until we pass and leave this plane, to be honest. So when the Angel of Death is around, it's not a bad thing. But because of the stigma of death and the finality of death, that we've been taught to be afraid of death, that it's the end and that we'll never see them again. And no, that's not true. You will see them again. You'll see your pets again. You'll see your parents again, your children. You'll see everything again. It's almost like they, if you look at it in a way that here they are, they've stopped breathing, but they're going away for this magnificent vacation in this beautiful place. I mean, and you'll catch up with them down the road and get to visit them as well there, if you could look at it differently and see it as a beautiful thing instead of a negative thing. And the Grim Reaper has labeled onto the Angel of Death. And again, death is not a bad thing.
Right.
So
I think it's just Hollywood and the motion pictures. It's a selling point for them. Anything scary, people want to check out and gravitate towards.
yeah, and if you see anything dark in a cloak, it's usually not an angel. I can tell you that. So yeah, that might make you spooky enough to walk out of a room, because the angels don't come in black like that.
So that might be a good segue into your first story then. I don't know.
Yeah. When I was a single mother, I had been looking for a house for about a year, which is how the whole Omnipresent series started. Also, just to back up a little bit, I've always had gifts since I was little, and I had mentioned about them on the time before that I was on the show. But when I purchased this house that was so haunted that I never moved into it, I was able to connect with people of like mind, and it helped me nurture my gifts again and get them going, which is then what left me acknowledging the gift of second sight and all of the other books, including being a death doula and all of those things, and seeing people leave their bodies. But how it all started was I was a single mother looking for a better home for me and my children, and being on my single person income. Of course, most of the houses that I could afford in my price range were either next to a dump, or it needed major renovations because I couldn't afford, to buy something on a 2-income family. And this house came on the market. My realtor had been hauling me around for almost a year, and she contacted me and she said, my colleague has just come back from this house. It's not even on the MLS yet. She's just putting in the pictures, and this house is in your price range, and it's almost too good to be true. And of course, that should have resonated with me, because it turned out to be too good to be true.
Yeah.
So it just, I'm sorry. Here we go. Just fixing something. So I rushed over to meet with the realtor at her office, and she showed me the pictures and the things that we were going through. As we hopped in her car, we're taking the 25-30 minute drive to go to look at the house. And I'm going through the papers, and I'm like, are you sure that this price is right? Because this was a 2,400 square foot house on a Florida flat, half-acre lot, which good luck finding one of those in North Carolina, with this big 3-acre grassed-in mowed area behind it that belonged to somebody else, but still it was nice because it was private, on a dead-end street in an area with low taxes and great schools. And it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a formal dining room, a breakfast nook, and downstairs a garage that would have fit 3 cars, and a big family room and a bone. It was a nice house. So I had, after several phone calls that I had the realtor make back to the person that had listed it, I'm like, this house could easily be $100,000 more than what they're asking. I'm like, and can you find out? Was it gutted? Does it have indoor plumbing? Is it next to a sinkhole or a stinky paper mill? I'm like, what's wrong with this house that it's for sale? And also it was desirable because the people had already moved out. And it was said that the people had moved out. They were living somewhere else. They had to move quickly because of their jobs. And they were anxious to sell because now they were between 2 mortgages. That's what I was told, which turned out not to be true either. So we get to the house, and the realtor, I'm looking around the neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood, brick houses. And we pull in, and there's this big double door entry. As a matter of fact, I've got, this is what the front of the house looked like. You can get an idea of how nice it was, including the demon in the window. And when there was this thing about the lock throughout the whole time that we lived there that was controlled by one of the demons. It turned out that there were, in fact, yes, 2 real demons and a young man that had hung himself in the house. Now, this was verified by the man that lived next door, that had built his house on the street even before it was paved. He had been there 20 years earlier on that street. The house was built in the 1970s. So people, it's not about the age of the house. A brand new house can be haunted if it's built in the wrong place. It's about the ground that it's built on. So finally, when the realtor, she had problems getting the key, to turn, and she's like, well, maybe they left the wrong keys. And finally, when she got it open, I entered into, it was a split level house with a foyer with stairs ascending and descending. And I entered into the foyer, decided to go look upstairs first. And as I'm walking up the stairs in my peripheral vision, I see this young man hanging in the stairwell. And I'm like, oh my God, and I look directly at it. And of course there's nothing there. And I'm thinking, with the background that I had of being taught to be afraid of my gifts, and I was still, doubting myself at this time, I thought, why would I think of something so horrible? This house is empty, and I proceeded up to the upper stair, and I'm admiring the house, and I'm placing my Christmas tree, and I'm looking at the white light carpeting that I was going to put wooden flooring in. And all of a sudden I feel this energy that is coming at me like a bull charging me. And it was so strong that I actually had to step back on the stairs and hang on to the rail behind me. And I could feel, it was like a portal, and I could feel these thready things like a spider web going across my face. And of course I immediately start brushing myself off, thinking, oh my God, it could be a brown recluse, because we have lots of those in North Carolina. And anyway, we toured through the house, and I knew that I wanted to make a bid on it, because previously I had kind of delayed on making bids, and I'd come back a week later and the house would be gone. So I asked if I could come back later with my children and meet her there. And so we met at 3:00. I had both of my kids with me. And of course they're running through the yard and the house, and, oh, we love this house. So I'm standing in the kitchen getting ready to make an offer on the house with the realtor, and my daughter and son come up and they say, can we go look downstairs? And I said, sure. They were down there 5 minutes. They come back up, and my daughter, who's 13, she says, Mommy, I don't like this house. I don't want to live here. Well, of course, I was embarrassed, because here this realtor's been hauling me around for a whole year trying to find a place to live. And here's my teenager stating that she doesn't like it. And at first I'm like, what'd you say? And she said, there's something strange about this house that I don't like, and I do not want to live here.
Wow.
So I'm assuming that she's realizing now that we're going to be moving a distance away, and she's going to go to a new school and all of that. So I said, well, that's not your decision to make. And I should have listened to her. So I went ahead and I said a little prayer. I made an offer, and I'm like, if this is meant to be mine, it'll be mine. Got the call the next day that I had in fact gotten the house.
Wow.
So on the closing, the people that were selling me the house were almost 3 hours late to the closing. And I found out after the fact that the reason why was because when the wife found out that I had children, she was arguing with her husband and didn't want to sell me the house because of what had happened with their children in the house, which I'll go into more towards the end. So anyway, the very, very first day I'm getting the keys, I take the kids over, I take makings for tacos, and the kids are picking out their bedrooms and that sort of thing. And they each brought something to put in their bedroom to, my daughter brought her Nintendo, and my son brought his baseball bat and glove to stake their ground. And I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, and all of a sudden my daughter comes into the doorway and she says, well, what did you want? I said, I didn't call you. And she said, yes, you did. She said, you called me twice. She said, and I answered you and told you that I was coming, and then you called me the second time. And I said, no, I swear on my life I didn't call you. And she said, I swear on my life you did. And my son comes in and he's peering into the kitchen from underneath her arm, and he said, I heard you call her too, Mommy. And so here, right off the bat, these things have an intelligence about them. They had learned that I was the mommy lady. They had learned the names of my children, and they were mimicking my voice to my kids. So, but I rationalized it. I'm like, you know what? Brittany's a popular name, and maybe it was somebody else's mother. This is a dead end street. It's dinner time out there calling for her Brittany, and I'm sure that you'll meet this Brittany, and you'll make good friends. So we go to leave. And I come back the next day without my kids, and I go into the door, and again, I'm having trouble with this stupid lock. And I'm like, I'm going to bring some WD-40, and fix this, because it was this constant thing with the lock. And when I went into the house, I took my purse upstairs and sat it down on the counter, and I started to look around, and I noticed that the oven light, the inside of the oven light was on, and the overhead was on, and we haven't moved in. I purchased it in March but was going to wait to move in and do renovations first and then move in the summer so that my kids could finish the school year and then start in their new school at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And then I started to walk through the house and I noticed that every single light in that house was turned on. And I thought, you know, maybe one of the kids ran back in and turned on a light and I just didn't notice, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that everything was off. So I start walking through the house and turning the lights off. And I thought to myself, you know what? This house sold so fast. They didn't even get a chance to put the for sale sign up in the yard because I bought it before, you know, it was just barely put on the
Right.
MLS, you know, by that evening. And I thought, well, maybe a realtor came through and was showing the house after we left and didn't realize that it had sold and that sort of thing. So I let it go. I turned the lights off. I left that day, went home. As I was leaving, I was having trouble with the door lock and trying to get the door locked. Finally, I just put my hand inside and pulled it closed so that the knob was locked. And there were some other things that had happened too. So I get back there the next day and I put my key in the lock and the door just pushes open. I didn't even turn the doorknob or anything. And I'm like, okay, somebody else in the neighborhood has to have a key. I'm thinking, because when I went in to put my purse down, I was going to start painting the ceiling and I went to the sliding glass doors to open them to let the air in. The pin and everything was out of that sliding glass door and it was unlocked. I went down to the garage and the garage doors were unlocked. And I thought, well, you know, I haven't had manual garage doors. I've always had the clicky thing, you know, to open it and close it. So maybe I didn't lock those, but I went across the street to the neighbors to introduce myself. And I said, listen, I'm the new owner of this house. And just to back up a little bit, I actually did that after the lights were on and I met the husband and I said, you know, was somebody here after I left last night? Or if you notice people coming on the property, they shouldn't be there. You know, I noticed when I got there that the lights were all left on and he had said that he and his wife had taken a walk later that night. And the only thing that they observed that was on were the solar lights that were lining the driveway. They didn't see any lights on in the house. So I said to them, I said, well, here's my phone number. You know, I'm going to be having workers there. If you notice people there and my car is not there, I want you to call me because I don't want anybody to get hurt or whatever. And then the issue with the locks the next day. So I go back over to the across the street to the neighbors again. And I said, listen, I said, did you notice anybody over? I mean, I went to go into the house today and the house is all unlocked. And the wife came forward and she said to me, I don't mean to be a nosy neighbor, but I saw you leaving and you were having trouble with the lock. She said, you even went halfway to your car and double backed and you went and you took the knob and you shook the door. And I had forgotten that I had even done that. So it was in place in that door, you know, the door. And I don't know what, you know, the thing that was tampering, one of the demons was a hell dog. And I've learned that as there's a hierarchy of angels, there's also a hierarchy, for lack of a better word, that goes in the opposite direction. And as it goes deeper, they become stronger and able to do more things. The hell dog was able to leave bleeding claw marks on people, was able to leave bite marks on people, bruises on people, and was able to do all kinds of things. Whereas the second demon was the equivalent more so to like a cherubim going upwards, but coming down like that first level, but they were able to leave imprints. They could put mind imprints. And there was one point that I was standing downstairs unloading boxes or loading boxes, whichever I was doing. And I could feel that something was watching me from the door and that portal of the ectoplasm was just filling the room. So I expected something to happen. And all of a sudden I feel this feeling of the snake coiling in my pocket and slithering down my leg. And I knew what it was. So I didn't react because I knew it wanted the reaction to feed off of the negative energy of fear, which is their chocolate. They feed on negative emotions. It enables them to do more physical acts when they're around fear or anger or sadness, any of those things, they eat it up. So as things progressed, I had 3 different workers come to the house. Actually, I had 4 different workers come to the house. The first 3 didn't stay past 2:00 in the afternoon. The last one was stoned all the time, so he carried his demons with him. And at that point, I wasn't taking my children over anymore. But, and he did good work. So I figured as long as, he's not doing drugs or smoking around my kids, and he does good work, let him go ahead and finish. But and I'm moving ahead quickly, there was a lot more that happened. Moving forward with the workers, there were the 3 workers prior to him, and the third one was a friend of mine's cousin. So I got to actually find out what was happening and why they were leaving. The first person that I had mentioned that he was between jobs and that he might have to leave and do one, which is what happened. The second one claimed to have had somebody in the hospital, but this guy left his DeWalt tools. He didn't even come back to get paid. And when I finally tracked him down, he told me to leave the tools outside in an area that was under a roof that he would be able to collect them. And he never came back. And then when I tried to get a hold of him again, his phone number was disconnected. So he never came back. And I mean, DeWalt tools, they're expensive. And so I never got to find out what happened with him. But the third worker was a friend of mine's cousin, this lady that I worked with, another nurse. And so I got to find out what was happening in the house with him. And I'll be happy to share that if you'd like.
Yeah. One question, did the neighbors ever say anything? Did they know any history of the house?
They did. The guy that lived next door that had been there 20 years before the house, he remembers when the house was built, and the couple that was there had a son and a daughter. Actually, they had 2 children, but the parents, after like 5 or 6 years of living in the house, ended up getting divorced or were going through a bitter divorce. And the mother ended up coming home from work one day and found the young man hanging in the stairwell.
Oh.
Apparently he had some issues with drugs and some depression. But she was the one that found him hanging there. And but anyway, just to back up a little bit, the friend of mine's cousin's name was Billy, and he was going to help lay the tongue and flooring for me. I was trying to get the workers to get this wooden flooring put down before we moved in and get all of that light colored carpet out of the house. And he was there with me on this one particular day, and I'm painting in the hallway just on the opposite side of my son's bedroom where he was in there putting down the wooden flooring. And he had a mallet and a trowel and a trowel mallet and a block of wood to tap in the tongue and groove flooring with the adhesive. And as I'm standing in the hallway painting, I turn and I see coming up the stairs to the main level this young man who I thought was disoriented or had knocked and I didn't hear him, and he just walked into the house because he was that solid. And he had on jeans, he had on a white Oxford shirt, penny loafers, kind of 80s styles with no socks, brown feathered back hair, and he had a very, very ruddy complexion. It was kind of darkened and red, looked like acne, like he had bad acne. And I remember turning and saying, "Did you knock?" And then when I looked at it directly, there was nothing there, but I could see that energetic wavering at the top. And I hear Billy say, "Oh, no, I might have dropped something." He thought I was talking to him. So I realized in that moment that we had a ghost in the house. And that must be who was turning on and off the lights, turning on and off the water, playing with the door, the locks and moving things and that sort of stuff, and all of the stuff that had been happening up to that point. And so I left that day to go pick up my kids, and I'm sitting in the car line and I get this call from Billy, and he's like, "I've got to leave. I've got to leave right now." He said, "I don't know. I've never experienced anything like this in a house." He says, "I don't know what's happening." And the line dropped, and I couldn't get a hold of him for about a half an hour. So finally, when I caught up with him and called him, he said to me, I said, "What happened? Is everything okay?" And he says, "Well, it was nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're there." And then he ended up never coming back. So I found out from my friend at work, I said, "Listen, I'm kind of curious about what spooked Billy. I have a feeling it's something to do with paranormal, because there were some other things that had happened after that point in time that the 2 nights that we actually did spend there, which I'll share those with you too." I said, "Would you please ask Billy what happened that spooked him, that made him leave so quickly?" And she said, "Okay." So 4th of July comes, he's at her house, he's had a couple of beers, he's feeling a little bit talkative. And so she asked him, she said, you know, what happened at Lynn's house? And he said, oh, I feel so bad. She's such a nice lady, but that house is words that I can't mention on Fluff Tube, but it starts with an F. It's 4 letters and ends in a K, and it's that word up. So no, actually he added the ED on there. So it's trucked up. Yeah. Okay. So, and he said, and she said to him, she asked him, she said, well, what happened? And so he told her, he said that he was sitting on this garden seat that I had with rolling wheels because he had knees that were affected from football. And he was putting in the tongue and groove flooring, and he went to reach for his mallet to tap it into place with the wood, and the tools were not there. So he thought that he had rolled over them. And when he scooted, they weren't there. But then when he looked over by the door, they were paralleled and lined up 1, 2, 3, right in front of the door, like 6 feet from him. And he's like, oh my God, you know, I haven't moved from here. He was rationalizing, he was spooked. So he assumed that I had come back and that I had snuck in quietly and moved the tools and was playing a joke on him. So he got up from the stool and he went and he was calling out into the hallway for me. And of course I wasn't there. And he had the willies, you know, he had goosebump moment, but he's like, okay, well, maybe I had a brain fart or something, you know. And so he turned on his battery operated radio and he turned on the light and he sits back down with the tools and goes to put another piece in. And all of a sudden the light shuts itself off. The radio shuts itself off, or maybe it was the other way around. And then he hears the tools dragging behind him, lining up in front of the door. And he said that he couldn't get out of there fast enough, which I don't blame him. So with the 2 nights that we did spend there, the first night that I spent with my kids there, my daughter brought a friend with her to do a sleepover. And the other girl had the same name as my daughter. There were 2 Britneys. And at about 2 o'clock in the morning, she had gone, the Brittany friend had gone to the kitchen to get Oreos, and something spooked her in the kitchen that she ran back into the bedroom and told my daughter that she wanted to go home, that she wanted to have her parents called, that she wanted to go home. And I mean, how many 13-year-olds in a sleepover do you know that at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to want to go home? They're usually up giggling until 4 o'clock in the morning, you know?
Right.
I mean, they don't want to go home. You know, they want to stay up. It's a treat. So it got to the point where the girl wouldn't even go to the bathroom without having my daughter come along because of whatever it was that frightened her. And finally, at around 4 o'clock in the morning, they woke me up because the girl was insisting that she wanted to go home. So I called the girl's parents. I was going to have them meet me halfway. And they, of course, didn't want to get out of bed, and talked her into finishing the sleepover. And so she agreed. And the next morning, of course, you know, I took them to where they needed to go, but she stayed awake all night long. She didn't go back to sleep, and she never wanted to come back there. Wow. That was the first night. The second night, and I had brought blow-up mattresses because, again, there was no furniture in there. We weren't moving in until the summer. I was waiting to paint and make the house mine. The second sleepover was eventful. We brought the dog with us for the first time. I had a little schnauzer named Sally, and she would not go in the front door of that house. She balked and balked. Yes. And her collar literally came over her head. And so I thought, well, maybe she has to go to the bathroom. So I tethered her up to a long lead in the front yard, and she was happy out there. And then I had to go and get her and bring her in. I literally had to pick her up and physically carry her in. And then she started darting to the back door, looking for an exit to get out. She did not want to be in there. So let me hook this up because it looks like my battery might be a little low and I don't want to lose it. So bear with me a second. Just plug it in for a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. I want to make sure that I don't sound too far away. So a little while, apparently there was an event. Is this thing plugged in? Should be. Yes, it is good. Okay. Apparently there was an event that occurred. My children were downstairs in that lower room. The lower room had a large stone wall with a fireplace centered in it and a large hearth area that they could sit on. I believe that's what you call it, this stoop area that comes out. Is that a hearth? You know what I mean? That area that comes
Yeah.
out that you can sit stuff on. And they were in there, and the dog was down there with them. And I found out after the fact, what I saw on my end is the dog came up to the kitchen where I was, and the dog was just trembling. And I thought, well, maybe she was cold. So I didn't have a lot of things with me, but I had some towels. So I wrapped her up in towels, and she laid in that kitchen and would not take her eyes off of me until we got like closer to bedtime. So I assumed that she was cold, but I found out later that my children were down playing their video games, and the demon presented into the room behind my daughter. My daughter could feel a huff on the back of her neck, and when she turned, the hell dog was there, and she saw it. She and I both sat down after I finally saw it, which I'll tell you about that, and we drew without telling each other the details. She drew what she saw, I drew what I saw, and they were a match.
Wow.
Yes.
Now,
So
does your daughter have abilities too, or did Hellhound just present itself to her?
no, all of my kids have abilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
because they've been nurtured. You know, they've been nurtured they've never had anything make them doubt themselves that way. So they're all they have gifts. So anyway, she said that in that moment she felt this huff on the back of her neck, and when she turned, there was this horrifying thing standing there. So she decided to take her arms and start fanning like this, because the movement of the air seemed to move the thing away from her. Something just told her to do that, and then they ran out of the family room as soon as they could get out, and went down to the bedroom. And I heard them down in the bedroom playing their game, and just figured that they had come up for some reason. But the dog had clawed the drywall next to the door so hard to get out of that room that she almost went through the drywall and created a hole.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it had scratched it up. So that night we're still at the house. My son takes a bath the night before. He puts on his little Bob the Builder or whatever it was at the moment that he was into, and he had the little shorts and the matching shirt with the short sleeves. And I'm mentioning this because I had full view of his skin that was exposed, and they had both taken the blow-up mattresses and drugged them into the master bedroom and put the TV in between. They were watching Hidalgo, and they ended up falling asleep, and the dog was nestled in between the two kids. And I'm like, I've gotten so many rooms started, pulling up carpeting and different things like that, that I wanted one room that I could go into that was fit. So I decided to paint the master bathroom ceiling and walls so that it could dry overnight and I would be finished with that. And so I started doing that, and I finished it around 11 o'clock at night. And I went to the kitchen to rinse out my brushes. And as I'm coming out of the kitchen, you pass the area with the descending and ascending stairs. So there's this wrought iron black railing as you come out of the kitchen, blocking you from falling to the descending stairs. And then the ascending stairs are coming up right in front of you. And then there's a hallway in the living room to your left, but there's a hallway straight ahead. And as I'm passing it in my peripheral vision, I see this thing shooting up from the downstairs across the white double entry doors, up the stairs in front of me, and shooting down the hallway. This thing was standing up on its haunches. I am 5'9". This thing stood about 5'7". Its feet were moving so fast underneath it that you could just see fluttering. It literally had a large tail like a squirrel, kind of hunched over. It had rabbit ears, but not on top, but on the sides of its head, going back, grazing over its shoulders like the FTD man. Its face narrowed towards the end, and it was a brownish colored, whatever it was, kind of skin, for lack of a better word, that kind of sunk over the bones, but it had large nasal openings like a horse, and it had long nails, kind of short and in. And I see this thing dart in front of me down the hallway, and I froze. I was beyond wetting my pants. Okay. I froze. And in that moment, again, because for years I had been taught that these things aren't real, that I'm seeing things, it's my imagination, thanks to traditional religion. So I rationalized and I'm like, okay, not all of the windows have dressings on them. Maybe a car went under a street light or a motorcycle and made that look of the reflection. But rationalizing it, I mean, it couldn't have come up from the ground floor and then done that. But still, I'm rationalizing. I'm like, okay, I've been breathing fumes. I haven't had anything to eat for a while. My blood sugar could be low, and I'm making these excuses, but yet I'm still standing there frozen. And all of a sudden, I hear my dog growling at the end of the hallway, like ferociously growling. And I'm like, that snapped me out of it. So I didn't want the dog to wake the kids. So I go down the hallway. And in the master bedroom, my dog was standing back just like a foot or two, and her hair was up on her back, and she was growling at the doorway ferociously. And I pet her head trying to soothe her. She put her ears back for a minute and still just stood there hyper focused on that doorway. I ended up taking her out. Again, I'm rationalizing it, thinking, we have the luxury of sleeping with the windows open. And where we were living before, open windows were an invitation, not a luxury. So I'm thinking maybe she was hearing the raccoons and stuff outside. And I took her out and again, had a hard time getting her back into the house. I carried her in and she darted back into the bedroom and nestled down between the kids. I went ahead and I showered and I crawled into bed with them. And the next morning we wake up and I said to my daughter, I said, well, how did you sleep last night? And she said, I didn't. She said, I felt like something was staring at me from the doorway all night long. When my son got up, he had bite marks on his legs in 3 places on his thighs, upper and lower teeth. They were purple and you could literally count the teeth. Now, my dog was a schnauzer and the bite was smaller than she would have done, and she wasn't prone to biting anyway, but it was bigger than a rat. You know what I'm saying? It was bigger than I mean, my dog was a mid-sized dog. It wasn't one of the small schnauzers. And this could have been a bite from, say, like a dog that's bigger than a Chihuahua. Like a Maltese or something like that with a bigger head, with like a Westie or something with a bigger bite than that. And my son woke up and I asked him, I said, Austin, you know, what happened to your legs? You've got bite marks on your legs. And he started to touch them and he's like, well, I don't know. But I mean, these things were purple. Yeah, I mean, you would have to have felt something biting you like that. And it bit him during the night while he was sleeping. And he didn't notice them, but he had the bite marks on his legs. And so
that's wild.
Yes, it is. So then we got into the car and we left, for home. And I took the kids actually to school that morning. It was actually on a school night that I had them over there. And I felt creeped out. So I kind of stayed away from the house for a little while. And of course, staying away from it, I started to question myself and doubt myself. And I'm thinking, oh, that's so silly. It's such a nice house. He must have been playing with his dinosaur or something and maybe made the bite marks with that. He had that green dinosaur from Toy Story. And, I'm rationalizing it again.
Right.
But then things had continued to happen and a lot of other things happened as well. When the young man was there, when Billy was there, and left that day. I'm backing up to the guy that was my friend's cousin that had the moving tools. When he was there that day and called me that he had to leave right away, I had to go back to the house. I was a single mom. I was off Monday through Friday, but I worked extra long hours on the weekend during the nighttime so that I could be a soccer mom on Saturdays, but have that time with my kids. And I did a Baylor shift on the weekend. So it was a Friday and I had left and I wasn't planning on going back there until Tuesday because I worked Sunday night and needed to sleep Monday day. So when Billy left, he left the windows open and some of the windows didn't have screens on them. And there was one with an air conditioner that needed to be pulled in from one of the windows so that the window could be shut. So I asked my next door neighbor, I said, would you mind coming with me back to my new house? And she was fine with that. And I was telling her about the ghost that I had seen that day of the young man coming up the stairs. And I said, do you believe in ghosts? And she says, oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I believe in ghosts. And I said, well, I think that there's one in this house. I said, when we get there, I appreciate you going with me, but if for some reason you don't want to go in the house with me and help me pull that air conditioner in, you can stay in the car and I'll get the neighbor's husband from across the street to come in and help me. And she says, oh, no, I'm fine with that. When we got to the house, I started having trouble with the lock and my keys were stuck in the lock and I couldn't get them back out, but I got the door open and my friend Ellen steps in to the foyer and she says, ha ha ha, you're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me. Big mistake, because they targeted her. They do have an intelligence about them and they don't like being mocked. So they targeted her. She and I went down the hallway. We pulled in the air conditioner, secured the windows, closed up everything. And because I was proud, I wanted to show off the house a little bit. And she hadn't been there before. So we had gone into the kitchen and I had bought these wooden carved Morgan horse heads. My daughter wanted a wild horse theme in her room to put the valance over her windows with to hold up the valance. So I was showing these to Ellen in the kitchen and we're standing side by side. We're facing the kitchen window and the counter and she's got one in each hand. And I hear this buzzing, gurgling sound, kind of like a didgeridoo, this wah wah, that Australian didgeridoo sound.
Right.
When I turn, I see this portal, this ectoplasmic floor to ceiling side to side wall moving in on us. And I didn't say anything because I thought that I was the only one that could hear it. And all of a sudden, my friend Ellen says, what's that sound? And I said, do you remember that I told you about the ghost? Here, we're going to leave in just a minute. Just wanted to show you this. And then she started screaming. And she said, what is it? What is it? A spider bite? She starts grabbing her shirt, trying to pull it around to see if there's a tear. She's like, I think a spider bit me. There's something burning on my back. And I swear on my children's lives, and I would fight God for my children. If he wanted to take them, we would definitely have we would have a talk about that. I don't know what parent wouldn't fight even God for their children. Okay. I swear on my children's lives, what I'm about to tell you happened. And I don't care if people believe it or not. I have witnesses to it. When I lifted up the back of her shirt, she had a 4-inch claw mark between her shoulder blades, even partially underneath her bra strap, where her bra connected in back.
Right.
And it was actively welting and beating blood. It looked like a cat scratch. Being a medical professional, a wound reacts to that welting thing when it's a fresh wound. Even if you have a wound and you pick a scab off, that welting thing doesn't happen again. It'll bleed, but it doesn't happen again. That initial, you know what I mean?
The inflammation.
Yeah,
exactly. And this is what it was doing. And I said to her, I said, Ellen, I said, you've got a scratch on your back. What happened? Did you scratch yourself on the car getting out? I was thinking, the corner of the door, because there's no furniture in this house. There's just the blow up mattresses and a few little things that my kids have left. So there was nothing in the house for her to have bumped into, to scratch herself. And she said, no. And she started screaming again. And it got her another claw mark on her lower abdomen to lower belly off to the side.
wow.
And so she's like, it got me again. It got me again. And I'm like, in that moment, started screaming out into the room every name that you can think of God. Jesus, Jehovah, Mother Mary, Allah, pick one. And the plasmic wall started to move backwards and into the doorway openings, but it didn't leave. It's kind of lingered in that formal dining room area. You could see it in the doorway, but at least it moved away from us. And I told her, I said, go to the car. I said, I'll lock up, go to the car. So she went out first. And of course, I'm coming out behind her. And at that point, I was not going to mess with that lock and get that key stuck in that lock. So I hand knobbed the lock and pulled it shut, because at that point, if anybody wanted to break into that house could take care of itself, like,
Wow.
But then
Right.
I got home that evening, and that was the first time that I finally got on the phone, and I started calling paranormal groups. I started looking up paranormal groups and emailing them online, and most of them wanted to come and take pictures and then advertise and sell those pictures for money. And I'm like, look, I don't need somebody to come and tell me that I've got something in my house. I already know there's a problem in my house that's
Right.
related. I need somebody to come in and get them out,
Right.
thing. And so finally I was in touch with Georgia Paranormal. I had Father Andrew Calder, who has unfortunately since passed away as a young fella. He wasn't that old when he passed away, but he came out to the house. I also had a Presbyterian minister, which how he got involved was when I realized that the house was haunted. Of course, you just can't. You have to reach out to somebody that knows you and knows that you're not crazy. So I had been working at the facility that I was at for 7 years at that point out of 10 years that I was there. And they had an Episcopalian priest who knew me. And so I mentioned to him the issues, and he guided me. He says, oh, yeah, I believe in that stuff. And I used to help with that. I don't do it anymore. He recommended that I call the Catholic Diocese in Charlotte, North Carolina. I got all the way up to the Archbishop, who basically told me that, they only bless houses now, and they don't remove spirits off of people. And I'm like, well, it's not me. It's that house. I have a place that I go home to and sleep at night, and there's no problem there. It is that house. There's actually orbs flying through my house right now as we're speaking.
Oh.
So I actually even got out the yellow pages, and I went through and called every single church, one after the other, in the yellow pages. And I had so many of them refer me to the Catholics, which was surprising, because it's like, well, I thought that you were the only ones that are the real religion, and you're the only ones going to heaven. Yeah, I had others that told me that if I had been attending their church, I wouldn't be having this problem.
Oh, wow.
And then there was one of them that I had mentioned that I was a single mother, so because I was alone with children, at that time, having to address this issue, this woman was so pompous, and she had the nerve to say to me, well, she accused me of being promiscuous, and that I was creating the problem because of my promiscuity. And I had not even been out on a date in 4 years with anybody. So
That's
that
horrible.
so that wasn't true either. And it's like their slogan is, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would have helped me, but I understood that they were afraid and didn't know, how to handle the situation either. So, I felt, and so that's how the Presbyterian minister got involved, because I was raised Presbyterian. Then my mom did the Jehovah's Witness thing, and then I kind of did the Presbyterian thing again. A Presbyterian minister from that church agreed to help me. And he told me, he said, when I mentioned to the church the issue that you're going through, he says, I was more afraid of the Bible thumpers than the things that were in your house, because of the response that he got. But he ended up coming out and helping while the Georgia Paranormal Group was there. They came out the night before. They did EVP readings. They got pictures of they got pictures of the demons. They got pictures of the orbs that were flying around the house. Everything was done in the dark. They came out the next day and did a clearing that literally took 10 hours. I mean, they
Oh my gosh.
they did the coins in the corner of the lot. They went from the attic to the basement, back to the attic, back to the basement multiple times, because you could see the orbs darting in and out of the wall with the segmented tails that they have when they're flying quickly. So he went through the house completely. And when he finished, he said that it would be okay for me to start bringing my children back, because at that point I had stopped bringing my children there. So I drop him off at his hotel and I go home. My mom's got my kids and my dog at her house. And so when I come home, my house is of course completely empty, and I'm there by myself, and my phone rings. I thought, gosh, it's 11:30 at night. It must be my mom. There must be an emergency with the kids. So I pick up the phone, and there's this buzzing again, didgeridoo gurgling sound on the phone, and then it dropped. So I hung it up, turned to walk to go brush my teeth, and it started ringing again. And I came back and I picked it up, and again it was the same thing, this buzzing gurgling sound, and then it was a shorter time and it dropped. It did this 3 times.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so when the phone rang the 4th time, I almost didn't answer it, but I did. And all of a sudden, the priest is on the other end of the phone, and he said, "Were you trying to call me?" And I said, "No." "Why?" He said, "Because my phone rang here about 3 or 4 times, and every time I pick it up, there was nothing but static." And I said,
Wow.
"I just had the same thing happen here right before you called, and I almost didn't answer the phone." And he said, "Well, I'm not surprised, because these sorts of things happen sometimes when you're dealing with demons." So,
Isn't that amazing how they
yes,
can come into your virtual space, but also come through electronics? I mean, they can't physically pick up a phone and dial a number. They just do it supernaturally. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
yep, they can come through the internet. They can come, they can do a lot of things. So he he told me that I could bring my children back. And again, a lot more happened. We never spent a night again in the house. So I went ahead. I'd had the blessing done. I took the kids back. My son this time brought a friend, and they're outside climbing the tree in the front yard. My daughter's upstairs in her room, and I'm getting ready to mow the grass. I'm putting gasoline in the lawnmower. All of a sudden, my son's friend, Zach, comes in through the front door, down the descending stairs. And when he gets to the bottom stair, he's wincing and he's grabbing his neck. And I'm like, "What happened?" I'm peeling his hand away, expecting to see a scratch, thinking maybe, you know, they got in a sword fight with sticks and he got scratched or something. And he said, "I don't know." He said, "When I came down the stairs, it just hit me." I said, "The bottom of the stairs?" And he says, "Yeah, it just hit me." And then he started to retch. And during the time that my mother was at the house helping me trying to clear it, they would attack her and she would retch and almost vomit and have to go outside. So I recognized the retching as a demonic attack. And I got Zachary to the car and I yelled out to my other 2 kids. I said, "Do not come down those stairs to the bottom stair. Go to the car. We're going home. It's time to go home." So I closed up the garage. My son went from the tree to the car, but and before I closed the garage, I was in the process. My daughter didn't hear me say, "Don't come down the stairs."
Mm.
So she ended up coming down the stairs to that bottom stair, and all of a sudden she gets to the bottom stair and she grabs her ankle. And she says, "Ah." And I said, "What happened?" And she said, "I don't know." She says, and she couldn't bear weight on it. It was that bad. She was crawling into the garage. And
Oh, wow.
she got to the bottom stair, and that it felt like a hot skewer stabbed into her foot and twisted it around 5 times. She said, "I wasn't coming down on it hard. I didn't twist it, nothing." And I ushered her out to the car and got her into the car, and of course closed the garage, and we left. And as we are getting off the block, the farther we got away, everybody's symptoms subsided. So I
Mm.
called that priest and I said, "Those things are attacking the kids." I said, "They are not gone." So he recommended, he had made arrangements before he left to go back to Georgia with a Catholic priest that was a friend of the actually the Presbyterian ministers, for me to, that they all collaborated with, that for me to contact that Catholic priest and have him come back to do a blessing on the house. So I did. I went and I picked him up. He had on one of those dress things. And I'm saying that because it was shaking the whole time. And I was kind of giving him a little bit of an idea of what he was walking into, which I probably shouldn't have done. So when he came into the house, I took him straight down to the downstairs where those things, that one room with the fireplace. They love stone fireplaces because they can, gain energy off of that too.
Right.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so that man is standing there and he is trembling so hard that his Bible's going like this. So he was actually making it worse because he
Mm.
was afraid that they were feeding off of his, negativity, and you could see them going up through the ceiling, the spirits just exiting the room. That man went upstairs, went down the hallway, squirt holy water in to the rooms from the hallway, and he was in and out of that house in 10 minutes.
Wow.
He was so scared that he got into my car. I took him back. He would not speak one word the whole way back, and he literally almost fell down getting out of my car. To get back to that church, he was so frightened by it. So I told the Episcopalian priest that was with Georgia Paranormal, and I said, look, I can't move into the house with my children. You know, what kind of a mother would I be moving into something like that and having my children come to me in the night because the covers are being pulled off of the bed and I can't do anything to protect them. You know,
Right.
you know, anybody I would call up, they'd put me in the nut house. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and the weird bruises and the bite marks. I mean, they would think that I was doing stuff to my kids, you know, and I wasn't. So I told him, I said, I've had enough. I can't put my kids through that. Your house is supposed to be your haven where you can go and relax. And I said, and I can only imagine if I had a window open and a piece of paper flies off, I would think that they were back. And I said, and not only that, what if I have Thanksgiving dinner with extended family over, you know? And he, before I told him that part, he said to me, no, you need to stand up and tell them to leave in the name of Jesus Christ, to get out of your house, that it's your house and you stand your ground. And I said, wait a minute. I said, can you imagine if I have an extended dinner for Thanksgiving and I've got extended family members and friends over for Thanksgiving dinner and I see a demon walk through the house, and if I stand up at that dining room table and start screaming, get out of my house in the name of Jesus Christ, how many people do you think are going to stay for dessert? And how many people you think are going to invite me to their house because I might be bringing more than chocolate cake? You know, so I said, I can't do that. I have to sell the house. And again, he kind of argued with me about it. And I'm like, no, I'm done. So I put the house up for sale by owner. I get a call from this young couple that grew up in the area. They wanted to raise their kids in the area. They had 3 kids. And they made arrangements to come and see the house. And I was stupid on the fact that I made the arrangements while I was in the house. So the powers that be in the house overheard me. The next day, my mom and I go to arrive at the house early to kind of stage play, you know, put some plants. There was no furniture. There was nothing in that house. It was spotless. We had cleaned it. There were no cleaning products, no garbage, no cleaning rags, nothing in that house at all. So we're walking up the sidewalk to the double entry doors, and my mom looks up and she said, Lynn, did you tint the windows? And I'm like, no, why would you think that? And I looked up to the upper windows and they looked black. I couldn't even see the division of the vertical blinds, but I thought, well, maybe I left them opened and that's why I couldn't see them. But when I looked to the lower level, there were flies. Not as many covering the lower level, but there were flies. There were thousands of flies. They were so thick that then when you looked up at the window at the top, it looked 3D. And you could see them all over the lower levels. And my mom, I said, oh my God, those are flies. We expected when we went inside that house that they would swarm us, but they didn't. They were actually at the windows wanting to get out themselves. So when we went in there, we literally had to take screens off of windows to shoo them out. And they had been in there so long that they had fly excrement all around the molding around the windows. I didn't even know that flies could make brown poop, but I mean, there were speckled everywhere all over the things. And there was one area in the breakfast nook where there were these 3 windows, kind of like a bay window. And the previous owners had painted the outside and painted them shut. And the cranks were broken. But the screens were on and the screens were in place tight and there were no flaws and no holes. And there were flies between the panes and the screens. We had to take the screens off to usher the flies into the house and out the front window in order to get them out. And I mean, there were no hatchlings, no maggots, no evidence of anything hatching in there. And these were big flies that were in there. There was nothing to draw them, no cleaners, no food, nothing to have drawn them, and they came into the house during the nighttime. Fortunately, the people had called my phone, and while my mom and I are panicking, we didn't want the people pulling up with flies all over the windows. We were panicking to get them out, and the people had called to cancel. They couldn't make it. So when I got the message, I was in the car. My mom and I were driving. We were going to go get hamburgers, and I was going to try to reach out to the people to find out why they hadn't shown up. And they rescheduled for the next day, but this time it was from my car. So this time my mom and I, we go back 2 hours early because we didn't know what we were going to be walking into. And everything was fine. No flies, no issues, nothing. The people come, they bring 2 of their kids. They have one other child that was older that was not with them. And the kids are running down the hallway, picking out their bedrooms, just like I remembered my kids doing. So it was like a deja vu moment.
Right.
And there was one bedroom upstairs that was smaller, and nobody wanted the smaller bedroom. So the kids came up and asked, can we go downstairs and look around? And of course we let them go. And again, 5 minutes, they were up, and those kids looked like a deer in headlights. And I overheard the little girl saying to the brother, Tommy can have the creepy room downstairs. I'll take the little room upstairs. So in that moment, I realized as a mother that I could not bring myself to sell the house to people with children.
Right.
So I ended up, a retired couple came up from Florida. It was a cash buy. We were in signing papers, and this particular day we were getting ready to leave the house. And I know we're getting close to time, so I'll finish this part up. We were leaving, coming down the stairs to the foyer, and then exiting out the double entry doors, and they were behind me. And I overhear the wife saying to the husband, why did you push me? And he said, I didn't push you. And she says, yes, you did. You pushed me. And he said, I'm 3 steps back from you. I can't even reach you. Of course I didn't push you. And she said, well, I don't know what happened then. And I knew what happened because I knew that the hell dog ran those stairs and played with the locks, and it controlled that area, and that's probably what pushed her. So when they came out, I couldn't bring myself to do to them what I had done to me, even though I understood the reason why the people sold me the house without telling me about it. So I said to them, I said, look, do you believe in ghosts? I was going to tell them. I couldn't bring myself not to with good conscience. So I said, do you believe in ghosts? And they're like, oh no, we're Baptist. We don't discuss those sorts of things. We don't entertain things, and we're protected. I said, okay. If they had asked me, I would have told them the truth. But I thought, well, maybe they have something that I don't have. Maybe these things really won't bother them because of their faith or whatever. Or maybe they don't notice that they're there. So anyway, 6 months later, I'm driving on the interstate, and there's a car backup. And so I take the exit to get around the car backup and to get back on the interstate. And it just so happened to be the exit of where the house was. And the roads that I had to take took me right past a main street that passed the street that the house was on. As I'm driving past, I noticed that there's a sign in the front yard. And where it was sitting, I couldn't tell if it was in the neighbor's yard or in the yard of the house that I had sold. So I drive to the next street, and curiosity, gets the cat kind of thing. And I'm like, I have to know if that's a for sale sign. So I stopped at the stop sign, and I said a little prayer for protection. I'm like, please don't let the people come out. I was trying to be very inconspicuous because I didn't want them coming out and inviting me in, because I had no intention of going back in there. So I turn off this one street over, and I come back down, and this is, of course, is a dead end street, and I turn in on it. And as I passed the house the first time, sure enough, it's a for sale by owner sign. They had it up. So they were leaving. Apparently they didn't get, I don't know what happened, why they were leaving, but I'm assuming that I know. I went to the end of the street, and I turned around, and I started to come back. I didn't have any radio on or anything because I wanted to be very quiet getting off the street. And it was the second house in on the right. So I'm driving. Now it's on my left-hand side. And all of a sudden, my radio turns itself on full blast. I can't get
Oh.
it to turn off. I can't get it to turn down. I can't get it to change channels. Let me tell you what, I left skid marks getting off that street.
Oh my God.
Yes, and as soon as I got out and around off of the corner, the radio shut itself off. So to me, it was them letting me know that they knew I was there,
Yeah.
and for me to know that they were still there. And
Yeah.
I couldn't bring myself to go back. So I felt bad, but I did end up getting a hold of the people that sold me the house, which goes into the second book. And they were telling me, when I finally got a hold of them and they were willing to talk to me, they were afraid to talk to me. The wife finally reached out. Come to find out, they had 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And in school, the children, first of all, were showing up with strange bruises and claw marks. And the little girl would talk about how the monsters downstairs didn't like her. And of course, they thought it was an invisible friend thing until other things started to happen. And in school, they ask them, draw a picture of your house and your family. So, of course, they draw this big house with little stick people, little stick flowers. And then on the opposite side, there were these dark stick things with big teeth and really ugly looking. And when the teachers and the parents would ask the children what those were, because here's mom, dad, sister, brother, type thing, what those other things were, they would tell them those are the monsters that live downstairs in my house.
Wow.
Yes. So they were having issues. They owned the house for a whole year, but actually only lived in it for 6 months. At the closing, I was told when I went to purchase it, all of these things, that they had moved for their jobs, that they had moved because, that it was move-in ready because they were motivated sellers. I mean, even when I went through the list for inspection, even the light bulb in the attic, I wanted changed. And I figured, well, if they turn me down, then it'll be a thing that God can say, no, this house isn't for you. But they fixed everything, including the light bulb. I mean, they didn't even question it because they wanted to offload that house so bad.
Right.
But the thing is that, I felt bad for them, but I found out at the closing that they didn't change their jobs. They were still working at the same place. They had only moved 20 minutes away into her parents' house, which was where they were now living. So none of what I was told about the reason for which they left was true. And now it all makes sense. And the thing was, too, is during the closing, when the wife was there, she kept staring at the ground. And I kept doing one of these, trying to get into her view. And I was telling her, I said, thank you so much for this beautiful home that you're selling to me. I'm going to put wooden flooring in. I'm going to do this. And she says, oh, well, that's what we wanted to do, too. But the whole time staring at her feet, and she's not making eye contact with me. So, here I was so grateful because I thought, that it was my reward after all that I had been through with my children as a single mother and the hardship. And it ended up being the booby prize. But that's all how it happened. And then the next book kind of goes into more talking about the family and what happened to them. It almost led to a divorce for them because of the strange things that were happening, the water being running in the kitchen, and the husband would accuse the wife and the wife would accuse the husband, and nobody had done it. So it was creating a lot of problems that way as well, which they can do.
Yeah.
So
when we have you back, we'll get into what's next. What happened next?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Also, I had a Native American, the last person that I had come out to clear the house was a Native American woman, and she brought a friend with her. And where the house was seated on the lot, because it was a 2-acre lot, it was recessed back. So it had a nice long driveway. You could probably park 7 cars in that driveway before it would get to the thing, to give you an idea of how long it was. When she pulled in and got out of the car, she told me that if the house had been built over 3 feet, that it would not be haunted. That where it was built, there was some kind of a ley line or a vortex line that the house, when they built it, broke into, and the things were coming in through the fireplace. So that was interesting. But the thing that was really, really concerning to me is she looked at my daughter. My daughter had been complaining of pain in her back and shoulder. And I thought that it was her book bag, because here she is, this little, this middle school kid, and she's carrying this 50-pound book bag with her every day. So I got her a rolling book bag, and she was still complaining of pain. And there was one day in particular that I had taken off because I thought I was going to need to take her to the emergency room, because even though I was giving her Advil and Tylenol combined, it wasn't helping. And I thought, well, maybe she's got a clot or a tumor or something. And then she fell asleep. But then the next day, the people were going to meet me at the house to do this final clearing, the Native American woman. So I brought my daughter along with me so that afterwards I could take her to like a doc in the box, or, an emergency room or something. But the Indian lady said to me, she said, "Is your daughter complaining about pain in her back and her shoulder?" And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah. How'd you know?" I mean, it was something I never even thought of mentioning to anybody. And she said, "Well, because she's got an attachment on her back." And the exact spot that she was complaining of pain. And I said, "Yeah, she's been complaining of pain for weeks." And she said, "I'm not surprised, because it's a big one too." And then she did something energetically where she retrieved it and threw it to the ground, and she and her friend were stomping it into the ground. And she said to me, "Ask your daughter if she's having any pain." So I said to her, I said, "Hey, Brittany, and she said, "What?" I said, "How is your shoulder?" And she starts moving her shoulder, and then she starts doing this with her shoulder, and she says, "It doesn't hurt. It's fine. The pain never comes back." The thing about that is that, with pain, sometimes it can be attachments, and people that wouldn't normally have an addiction problem with pain pills, they become addicted when they're seeking relief for pain that they wouldn't have ordinarily have needed to be taking if they hadn't had the attachments. So sometimes those attachments can cause a lot of pain too, which is important for people to know. And that's why sometimes the pain is hard to treat. But anyway, I'll stop there. There's still a lot more.
All right.
So what state was this house in?
It was in East Flat Rock, North Carolina. And little did I know, because I moved up from Florida myself and didn't know that part of the area, that whole area is haunted everywhere.
Wow.
Restaurants. Yeah, I got stories in there that people shared with me of events that occurred to them in houses that they lived in that area. And little did I know that somebody had already written a whole book about that whole haunted area, including the playhouse that was there. I didn't know. If I had known, I would not have moved there. But so little did I know. And then I walked right into it.
Wow. Yeah, there's someone in chat that wants to know where it's at and the address. They want to go check it out. I'll have them contact you personally.
Well,
and you guys can talk.
Yeah, actually, I because there is somebody living there now, from what I understand, because I kind of went through the records looking, I cannot give the address out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to get sued for, people coming up, knocking on the door, can we come in and investigate when, I don't even, maybe the ghosts aren't bothering them, but there were so many people that had moved out of that house and sold it before, and it was actually bank owned prior to that, prior to people that I bought it from, they just didn't stay there. They would leave. And there was one room, the small bedroom, that when I took up the carpet in there, the whole subfloor was smeared in feces. I mean, it smelled like dog crap. It was just smeared like a glazed layer of dog crap all over. And I thought, what on earth, happened in here? So there were a lot of other things going on with that house. But if you want a house to investigate, I got one for you. It's in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's right. You're Louisiana.
Yep, I'm in South Carolina, but I've got a house that I just inherited in Louisiana that has a resident elemental that will be happy to rock your world with all of his trinkets and animal spirits and people spirits. And I've had paranormal groups out there, and it's been confirmed that there's a spirit there named Ed that'll be happy to blink your flashlight for you.
Well, there you go, Jim. If you want to go to Louisiana, contact Lynn.
Yeah, I'll give you that address. You can go and do it. You can go. Yeah, it's got a huge 2-acre lot with a 6-foot fence around. You can pull in your camper, and you got.
And that's where the elemental is, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and he will meet you at the gate.
Jim
Guaranteed.
said it's too
Wow.
far.
Well, you know, if you win the lotto and you want to come over and experience, or if you got friends that live over that way, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to let you come and experience it.
Wow.
Wow.
Maybe you could do like a bed and breakfast.
You know, I was thinking about doing that, but I don't want to have to live there and prepare food for people. So I would have to build something off to the side maybe and put like protection around it, even though actually the elemental has calmed down because he's getting his needs met on a daily basis. With my son being there, they've kind of made an amends. But I was thinking about that, or leaving it open for people to book it for, investigations where they
Yeah.
can side, or they can bring, because it's a huge yard area that you could park mobile homes, not mobile homes, but like RVs
Hmm.
and camping grounds, and it's way out free, so you're not going to bother anybody other than the coyotes and the cows. So yeah, definitely, I've considered doing that actually.
Yeah, my niece, not paranormal wise or anything, but my niece rents some of her property to people with RVs, and they just pull up and they just stay there on their extra lot and stuff, and when they're in the area or whatever. And I just thought maybe you could hook up the paranormal aspect to it and really get some good excursions going on.
I'm considering that. Yeah, I am considering that. My sister passed away in June, and there are some things that have needed to be addressed, like the plumbing has cracked and broken a couple of times, so I've had to have it repaired. And there are a few things that I need to do to get it up to par, so that if somebody were to stay like in the master bedroom, which there's a lot of activity in there, the bathroom shower has to be fixed. So people would be able to use, the bathroom. So, and of course there's another bathroom, but if you're going to rent the master bathroom, you should be able to have, a working
Right.
bathroom. So there are some things that, because she was sick, that had to be let go, that I'm in the process of replace, a couple of windows that were broken in the original, the first panes, not the second ones, and some things like that that need to be taken care of before, I would have somebody, come out there to do that. But very, very soon, I'm hoping, maybe within the next month or two, to have it up and running, and possibly, doing that if people want to come out. And I've got people that are respected in the community that have been out there. The Ruperts have been out there that would definitely vouch. It has been verified that there are spirits and there is an elemental out there. They've seen it. They
Wow.
communicated with.
Wow.
So yeah, it's for real.
I find it amazing though, even the other house that you were talking about that you didn't get to stay at, on how almost like The Exorcist and Amityville Horror all mixed in
Mhm.
together in
Uh,
one place.
I, you know, I, it was a God, why me moment. I mean, here I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled. To provide as a single mother a house so grand, for my children, and it was so disheartening to go through that. But going through that experience, and the gift of it is, for one thing, the young man was released. We did cross him over. There was a story behind that as well. But I was able to get in touch with people of like mind, and for so many years I had curtailed my gifts because I was told that I was possessed, that it was demons and all of these things that frightened me. And I would see a ghost and I'd be like, woo, and I'd run out of the room just as fast as anybody else, scared. And then I started to meet people of like mind, and that helped me realize that I wasn't so strange, that there are people like me, and it helped me now to nurture my gift. The only sad part for me is that when I was little, I could hear them and see them. And
Mm.
the hearing part, I can see them, but the hearing part is more intermittent. I can see them when I want to. I can turn it on and off. I also see them when I don't want to sometimes. But the hearing part comes when it wants to. And I'm trying to get that back as well, so that I can hear them telepathically. I can hear the elemental. Yeah, I already told you what my name is with him, and it's the 3F.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's his favorite word. He loves to drop F-bombs, and he grumbles like the Tasmanian devil. You can hear him. But yeah, it just, yeah. And he carries his spirits around like balloons. And my son has been in the yard doing work on his car and laying underneath his car, and he would see bare feet walking past, spirit bare feet, and then little feet walking behind them of the elemental. And sometimes the yard at night, it fills up with beautiful spirit animals and souls and things that are in the yard. And it's a beautiful thing too. So yeah, I mean, you will definitely get your experience out there.
Wow.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, we had another question of the address. Was it an even number or an odd number? So I might as well ask you on both houses. Your sister's house in North Carolina, were they even numbers or odd?
Well, my sister's is 16626. So there are evens and odds, mostly evens in there. And the other one was a 17. So
17.
yeah. So I mean,
Okay, there you go, cheeseburger. Interesting.
yeah, yeah, but you combine the 1 and the 7 and it makes it 8, so it's an even number of numerology. And then
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
down. But yeah, who knew? Who knew? But it is in my book Omnipresent. There is so much more to that story that talks about the second demon and how he presented, talks about other people in the house that were attacked and that also saw the things. I've got over 13 witnesses that either experienced and or saw the things in the house. I had multiple denominations of religion in there, most of which made it worse. People, when you have a ghost or something in your house, the first thing everybody runs to get is the sage. Well, if you've got a demon in your house and you get sage, it pisses it off. It does not help. You've got to get something stronger, like dragon's blood or the incense or
Palo
something.
Santos?
Yes,
Okay.
combine and
Yeah.
use that sort of thing, because they won't back off with sage. They will come back with a vengeance. That is for
Yeah,
sure.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that you're better off using the wood sticks, the little Palo Santos, or however you pronounce that.
Yeah,
That actually lures them off.
yes, and also the dragon's blood too. And the dragon's
Dragon's
blood
blood.
is better than the other one. I like the scent of or you can get the resin also to use, but that's what you want to use to clear it with. Sage is very, very good for lost souls. Sage is very, very good for shadow people or those shadow things that are created by man through their issues. They can dissipate those. And it's also very good for what I call micrometastasis cleanup after you have removed ghosts from a house, or demons from a house, or whatever it is that you're removing from the house, to go in and do that overall cleanup, in the air of what's left. And also it's good to use when you go into, you buy a new house or a new area, because areas where people have had a lot of communication, sometimes you'll see bubbles floating like balloons that are all together, which is the communication that people have had, a lot of times more negative. And when you walk through it, you pick up whatever feeling of that left behind balloon thing is. If they've been fighting, if that's their usual place to fight, you walk through it and all of a sudden you feel pissed off at everybody and nobody's done anything. So you can pick that kind of thing up. So it's important to clear that sort of thing out. Sage is excellent for that, but the other stuff, it's not
What
strong
about
enough.
dragon's blood incense?
Yes, dragon's blood
Okay.
incense, the resin, but make sure that you get the real stuff. The better
Okay.
home, the Better Homes and Garden from Walmart is not the real stuff. So you need to, check into getting the resin or the sticks. Actually, Temu has them, and those are the real sticks. Those are the sticks in the red and gold box that say Dragon Bloods on them that I use, and you can get them for like $2, $2.39.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about incense on
Yeah,
Temu.
no, you can
Wow.
El Santos too. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I mean. You can,
Palo Santo.
yeah. If you put in incense, it'll all come up, and they've got like 20 different kinds, and they're like $2.37 or 39 cents, something like
Oh,
that.
let's check that
Yeah,
out.
that's nice to know, because you going into a metaphysical gift shop, you're going to pay a lot of money for those Palo Santos.
These
Yeah.
are the same ones that they get in those shops.
Yes.
Socks, same ones. And yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Wow.
use my go-to. Also, you can find everything on there.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been ordering there.
Yeah.
Before we go, I thought the interesting thing that really struck me is when you were trying to call around with churches to find somebody that could exorcise or be an exorcist for your house. That I had recently found out, well, not recently, probably within the last year or two, doing my rabbit hole dives, that the Catholic Church really doesn't do exorcisms anymore. They're really high up. I mean, they're like the
Mhm.
real old cardinals, and us. It's even an offshoot of the Catholic Church now. It's not even really part of the Catholic Church anymore.
No, you're
Mm.
absolutely, and that's what I found out too. That they would, in my case, because it was like now almost 20 years ago. In my case, they would do it on they would bless a house, but they wouldn't do it on a person or something like that. And and that's where I had that conflict with them, and like, look, it's not me,
Yeah.
it's the house, so type thing. And I needed them at the house, but it amazed me, in like you said too, with the religion thing, of reaching out to sources that are supposed to be able to help you and having them slam the door in your face.
Right.
Right. Yep.
It's like, so I'm not here to judge, but yeah,
Right.
I would
Yeah,
I
because
would
I mean, that's what I would do. I would call local churches or whoever to try to find somebody. I didn't think of the Native Americans though. That'd be a good avenue to go down.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because I mean, my mom and I, we would try to go in and to pray and to sage. I didn't know about the dragon's blood at the time, and we would go in and sage, and my mother would become so overtly nauseated that I mean, it's the kind of nausea, because I can say this because I experienced it once when the Indian lady and her friend were there trying to clear the house, and I was the low man on the totem pole. No, actually, was it that time? No, it was when the priest was there with the Presbyterian minister, and he was doing the thing, because he came over and he put the cross over my stomach and told them to leave me alone, and it instantaneously stopped. And also, I felt a gashing on my arm that I thought if I had taken my hand off, the blood would be gushing everywhere because I was attacked.
Mm.
And they put the cross over that, and it also instantaneously made it stop. But that nausea is a different kind of nausea. It is, you don't actually vomit, but you feel so nauseated that you almost cannot breathe. That's how
Wow.
Oh,
and you've got to get outside, and just you're gasping for air with this overt feeling of nauseousness. So everybody, get your iron bracelets at Etsy for $12 to $18. Put them on and don't take them off if you're any kind of a person, and put it on your left wrist. Not father. Nathaniel Gillis told me about this. He's a demonologist. He's amazing. If ever you want him on your show, I can hook you up. He's not, you hear demonologist and you think of creepy stuff. He's not. He's so down to earth and such a wonderful man, a very, very huge heart, very interesting to talk to. Just with that label, you kind of like, ooh, kind of thing. But he's a great person to talk to. But he's the one that told me about the iron bracelets. He said, because they take iron and put it around graveyards to keep the souls inside. So it's always important, either a symbol that you're wearing,
Hmm.
bracelet, the easiest, because you can put it on and go, and you forget that it's even there. It doesn't leave like any green stuff on your arm or anything. I've had this one for a year, and that's how you put, I only have to take it off when I go to the airport and stick it in my purse, and then put it back on when I go through clearance, because it'll set off the alarms. But and then I never take it off. And out of all of the things that I have tried for protection, because I've had attachments on me too, because I take them off of people, and there are certain rituals and things that you have to do to prepare yourself to do that. And I was caught in a moment after my sister had passed away that I was under duress, and not so much because she passed, but because she had no will and no end of life directives. And I had this 100 bird aviary just fall in my lap, and I had 5 days to place birds and to close up a house. So I was stressed out, and I had somebody come to me with her son and said, listen, I think there's an attachment on my son. And there was, but I took the attachment off and it attached to me. I woke
Mm.
up next morning and I'm like, golly, it feels like there's a baby moving in my stomach, but it's on the outside, like it's jiggly. And I
Oh,
started pain in my back, and sure enough, that thing attached to me. And I had to get a friend to help me get it off of me. So with the protection, this is the best thing I have tried ever. And I guarantee, to everybody, if you're an empath, please get one of these. It will protect you and keep you from, having issues that way for the most part. So I guarantee and definitely wear it on your left wrist. So
why the
Someone
left
asked if it's
wrist?
a certain kind of iron.
iron. Nope. I got
D-
mine. I got mine on Etsy.
Okay,
It's
so it's not a certain kind of iron.
no, but it's solid iron.
Okay.
Iron. It's somebody makes them, and these are smooth and little flat thingies, and it bends to open it and close it, kind of thing.
Nice.
See,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
it's just thin, but it is solid iron. And like I said, you can find them on Etsy for $12 to $18, maybe, depending on
Wow.
how fancy you want yours. But I'm telling you, they work. And I'm not selling them. I'm just telling people you can go buy your own wherever you want. You know what I'm saying? You can even make your own if you want to. So, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're welcome,
the
Millie.
left wrist? Do you know why?
The left wrist is the wrist that receives.
Yep.
So, it's the
Okay.
So you want to have it on your left wrist so that anything incoming, if it's something negative, it blocks it there. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, and the right side's not. So yeah, most everything goes on the left side. If you
All
want to
right. This has been great, Lynn. Thanks for coming. This has been
Yeah.
awesome.
I think I got through all the questions. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody's question. I think I got all of them. Yeah, this is great. I mean, we're not done. We definitely have to have a part 3.
yeah, I would love that. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm at www.lynn, Lynn Monet, Monet, like the painter.com. That's www.lynnmonet.com. You can also purchase my books there. They do sell them on Amazon. They've got them in Barnes and Nobles and Walmart. Not all of my books. I'm moving my books to my website, so only some of my books are on Amazon because there are some issues with Amazon and payment. So, and also when I sell them on my website, I can personalize them for you and sign them. And I think
Oh, yeah.
my prices might even be cheaper on my website than they are on the other things. So you can find Omnipresent What Happened Next there, which Amazon does not have, and Omnipresent 111 Becadon Drive will also be on there, which will not be on Amazon. The only 3 that I have on Amazon right now is The Gap, because it's not paranormal and kind of needs to get out there a little bit more. Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End is out there, and my first book, Omnipresent, which is the one that was posted in the beginning. So, yeah, you can reach out to me if you need. There is an email address on my website. You can reach out to me. I do respond. Sometimes it takes me a little while to get to all of the emails, but I do answer them myself. And I've been trying to take the weekends off to spend family time and Sunday nights to leave open for these wonderful people, George Norrie and one other friend of mine that has me on a radio station on Sunday nights. So, yeah. So I leave it open just for certain people on Sundays, but Saturday's my family day.
That's awesome.
All right. Very nice. So everybody out there, if you want to dig deeper into this, what Lynn is telling us, make sure you reach out and get her books, and you can dig deeper into it and get more details out of the stories than what we brought you here. I mean, we only have so much time to talk about everything. So, but be sure, follow the series. There's, like Lynn said, there's going to be a whole series of books on all this, and check out her episode on Gaia when it comes out. And if we can, we'll post it in our Facebook group so you guys all can tune in and check it out.
Yeah, and also I'm booking. So if anybody in the audience would like to have me on their show, I am booking right now. I don't have my own podcast going right now. I want to, as I mentioned, to initiate that in the beginning, but right now I'm okay with being a guest. So yeah, if you want me on your show, reach out, let me know, and we can schedule something.
All right.
Awesome.
Very good. Well, don't go anywhere quite yet. We're just going to say bye to everybody, and we'll see everybody next time.
Yep.
We love you all in chat. Thank you. I tried to say hi to everybody in chat and bring up any questions that you had, and
Yep.
we just love you guys to death. You're I don't know, you're just so kind and loving towards us, and you know, make sure you take care of yourselves. You know, like Lynn says, wear the bracelet, and make sure you protect yourselves and do something kind for others.
What?
What's that, Lynn?
Take your salt baths.
Yes. Salt
Yeah,
baths.
salt baths. Yes.
That's important.
So thank you, everybody. I hope you guys all have a good night, and make
Yep.
sure you tune in to Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress. She's on later on tonight, right after us,
Yep.
on SOR, though. You have to go to SOR.
Yes. SOR tonight. And we will see you guys next time.
So have a good night. We love you all. Thanks for coming. Keep looking up and do something kind for others, and make sure you take care of yourself and do something kind for you. You have to love yourself first before you can help other people.
That's right.
So-
Keep your vibrations high.
Love you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.